Deep in a quiet green forest, nestled beneath the roots of an ancient oak tree, was a cozy hollow. This was the home of Finnian, a tiny gnome whose job was one of the most important in the whole forest. He wasn't a berry gatherer or a mushroom keeper. He was the official rain tuner. You see, in this enchanted forest, the rain didn't just fall, it sang. Every drop had the potential to hold a note. And it was Finnian's job to make sure the rain played a beautiful, gentle melody for all the forest creatures. His hollow was the perfect place for such work. The entrance was a small, round wooden door, and inside it was warm and dry, smelling of damp earth, chamomile tea, and sweet moss. Little shelves carved into the earth held his collection of interesting things: smooth river stones, colorful feathers, and tiny, polished acorns. A small hearth at the center held a perpetually glowing ember that cast a warm, friendly light on everything. From his window, which was a clear piece of crystallized sap, he could look out and see the whole forest, from the tops of the tallest trees down to the ferns on the forest floor. He would sit there for hours, watching the clouds gather, feeling the shift in the air that told him a new rain was coming. He knew that a good rain song could help the flowers grow, lull the baby animals to sleep, and wash the worries from the leaves of the trees. It was a gentle, quiet, and deeply important task, and Finnian loved it with all his heart. Finnian's tools were as magical as his job. He didn't use grand instruments, but simple things gifted to him by the forest itself. His most important tool was his tuning fork, carved from the petrified branch of a willow tree that was so old. It remembered the first sunrise. When he tapped it gently, it didn't make a loud sound, but a soft, deep hum that could be felt more than heard, a note that calmed the wind and readied the air for music. He also had a set of tiny drums made from hollowed-out acorns stretched with the finest spider silk. By tapping on these with the soft tip of a feather, he could create the gentle pitter-patter rhythm of the rain song. When the clouds grew heavy, and dark Finnian would take his instruments to the flat stone that served as his front porch. As the first drops began to fall, he would get to work. He would tap his tuning fork, sending its calming vibration up into the clouds. Then he would begin a soft, steady rhythm on his acorn drums. Magically, the rain would respond. Each drop that fell would begin to glow with a soft, silvery light, and as it landed on a leaf or a mushroom or the forest floor, it would release a single, perfect musical chime. Soon, the entire forest would be filled with a beautiful, cascading melody, a gentle lullaby played by the sky itself. The song would rise and fall, a peaceful symphony that made every living thing in the forest feel safe, cozy, and ready for a long, peaceful sleep. One evening, the air grew heavy and still, and the sky turned a deep shade of grey. Finnian felt the familiar tingle that meant a big, sleepy rain was on its way. He gathered his willowwood tuning fork and his acorn drums and went to his porch, ready to greet the storm and help it find its voice. He waited patiently, watching as the first few drops began to fall, speckling the dark earth. He smiled and tapped his tuning fork, sending its gentle hum up towards the sky. He then began his soft pitter-patter on the acorn drums, the familiar rhythm that always coaxed the music from the clouds. But this time, nothing happened. The raindrops fell, but they did not glow. They landed not with a chime, but with a dull, sad little splat. He tried again, tapping the tuning fork a little more insistently, his drum beat a little more encouraging. Still, the rain remained silent. It was a heavy, colorless, and deeply sorrowful rain. the kind of rain that makes the world feel cold and lonely. Finnian had never experienced this before. Every storm, no matter how big or small, had always had a song inside it waiting to be released. This silence was strange and unsettling. It felt as if the sky had forgotten how to be happy, as if the very heart of the rain had fallen into a deep and troubled sleep. The forest, which usually came alive with the gentle music, was now hushed and still, as if holding its breath, waiting for a song that would not come. Finnian stood there in the silent rain for a long time, a feeling of deep worry settling in his heart. The quiet plink-plank of the colorless raindrops was a sad sound compared to the usual beautiful melodies. As he watched, a tiny green frog, one of his good friends from the nearby pond, hopped solemnly onto the porch beside him. The frog's usually bright, cheerful green skin was a dull olive color, and his big, golden eyes looked sad. Finnian, the frog, croaked, his voice barely a whisper. The tadpoles won't sleep. They are used to the rain's lullaby, and without it, they are restless and afraid. Finnian looked past the frog, towards the pond, and he could see the faintest shimmer of worried ripples on its surface. He then thought of all the other creatures. In the forest, he pictured the baby birds, huddled in their nests, waiting for the gentle music that helped them feel safe from the dark. He thought of the sleepy badgers and the timid mice in their burrows, their own slumber disturbed by the unfamiliar, heavy silence. He even thought of the flowers, whose petals seemed to drink in the music of the rain just as much as the water itself. The silent rain wasn't just a sad event. It was a problem. The entire forest was out of balance. He looked at the worried little frog, and then up at the vast, grey, silent sky. He knew he couldn't fix this from his porch. He had to go to the source. He had to climb to the very heart of the storm. Finnian knew what he must do. He gave the little frog a reassuring pat. "Don't you worry," he said softly. "I will go and wake the music up." He grabbed his firefly lantern for light and tucked his most important tool, the willow-wood tuning fork, safely into his belt. He didn't know how one gets to the heart of a storm, but he knew he had to try. As he stepped off his porch and into the woods, he looked up at a break in the heavy clouds and saw the gentle face of the moon looking down. He whispered a quiet plea to the sky, asking for guidance. In response, a single, beautiful, silvery moonbeam pierced through the clouds and shone down directly in front of him, creating a shimmering, magical path on the wet forest floor. The path seemed to lead upwards, towards the highest peaks of the nearby mountains, where the storm clouds were their thickest. It was an invitation, a road made of pure moonlight. Finnian's heart filled with gratitude. He was not alone on this quest. With his lantern in one hand and his courage in the other, he stepped onto the moonbeam path. The light felt cool and solid beneath his little boots, and it illuminated the way forward, a single, shining line of hope in the dark and silent forest. After a long and tiring climb, Finnian pulled himself over the top of the waterfall and found himself in a world unlike any he had ever seen. He was above the rain, standing on the surface of the clouds themselves. It wasn't wet or wispy, but felt like walking on soft, springy moss. He was in the cloud meadows. All around him were rolling hills and soft, white plains made of cloud stuff. Strange and beautiful plants grew here, whisper reeds that looked like cattails made of pure mist, and pools of collected moonlight that shimmered like liquid silver. The air was cool and incredibly quiet, and the sky above was a brilliant, clear, starry night, unburdened by the storm below. The sad, silent rain was still falling down onto the world, but from up here, he could see its source. In the distance, at the center of the vast cloud meadow, was the storm cloud itself. It was darker and denser than the soft, white ground he stood on, and it seemed to be huddled in on itself, a great, sad, grey mass that pulsed with a sorrowful, lightless energy. Finnian knew that his journey was not over. He had to cross this strange, silent landscape and venture into the very heart of that sad, sleeping storm. To reach the storm cloud, Finnian had to cross the great sea of clouds. It was a vast open expanse where the cloud meadows grew thin, becoming a soft, shifting ocean of thick, white vapor. There was no path here, only a gentle, endless sea of white. As he stood at the edge, wondering how to cross, he saw a beautiful sight. A family of moon manta rays, creatures made of pure condensed moonlight, came gliding gracefully through the vapor. They had wide, flat wings that shimmered with a silvery light and long, elegant tails. They swam through the clouds as if they were water. The largest of the manta rays, seeing the little gnome standing alone, dipped down and hovered before him, its large, intelligent eyes full of a silent question. Finnian, understanding the offer, bowed his head politely and carefully climbed onto the creature's broad, smooth back. The moon manta ray was not warm or cold, but simply felt like a solid, peaceful light. With a powerful, graceful flap of its wings, it lifted off, carrying Finnian smoothly and silently over the great sea of clouds. They soared through the thick, soft vapor, other manta rays gliding around them in a silent, beautiful ballet. It was a peaceful and wondrous journey, a quiet moment of magic that gave him strength for the final step that lay ahead. The moonbeam path led Finnian high up the mountainside to a place he had never been before. It ended at the base of a sheer, wet cliff face. For a moment, his heart sank. There was no way he could climb this. But as he looked closer, he saw that this was no ordinary cliff. It was a wall of living, moving water. A great waterfall was cascading down, but it was moving in extreme slow motion. Its currents so thick and gentle they looked like flowing glass. And growing within this slow-motion waterfall was a special plant, a water vine. Its leaves were like translucent, glowing jade, and its thick, sturdy stem seemed to offer a perfect ladder up into the clouds. The moonbeam path dissolved, its light now absorbed into the glowing leaves of the vine, showing him that this was the next step of his journey. Taking a deep breath, Finnian reached out and took hold of the vine. It was not slippery, but felt firm and strong in his grip. He began to climb, pulling himself up, hand over hand. The slow-moving water of the fall flowed gently around him, cool and refreshing, but not forceful. It was like climbing through the heart of a gentle giant. Below him, the forest grew smaller and smaller, and all around him was the beautiful, silent dance of the slummed ocean water and the soft, green glow of the magical vine. The moon manta ray carried him all the way to the edge of the great, grey storm cloud and then dipped its head, allowing Finnian to step off safely before gliding silently back into the vapor. Finnian stood before the storm. It was like standing at the base of a mountain made of sad, heavy fog. Taking a deep breath, he stepped inside. The air was thick and heavy with an unspoken sorrow. It was not dark, but filled with a uniform, grey, directionless light. As he walked towards the center, he began to see a shape within the mist. It was the heart of the storm, the rain spirit itself. It was a colossal, sleeping creature, its body made of the densest, softest cloud, coiled in a great, peaceful circle It had the gentle, serpentine shape of a great sky dragon, but its face, which was subtly visible in the cloud's form, was one of profound and deep sleep. Its great eyes were closed, and its form rose and fell with a slow, silent, and incredibly sad rhythm. Finnian understood everything. The rain spirit was not angry or broken. It was deeply asleep, lost in a sad, silent dream. Because it was not awake to sing its happy song, the rain that fell from its body was silent and joyless. He had to wake it, not with a loud noise that would startle it, but with a gentle, kind melody that would coax it from its sorrowful slumber. Finnian stood before the immense, sleeping cloud spirit, his own small form barely a speck in the vast, grey chamber of its heart. He knew that a loud noise would only frighten it, perhaps turning its sad rain into an angry storm. This called for the gentlest magic he knew. He reached into his belt and took out his willow wood tuning fork. The air in the cloud was so heavy with silence, he worried the sound wouldn't carry. He closed his eyes, thought of the happy, gurgling brook in his valley, and gently tapped the fork against a small stone he carried in his pocket. The sound that emerged was beautiful. It was a low, clear, and incredibly pure hum that cut through the heavy silence. It didn't shatter the quiet, but instead, it filled it with a feeling of deep peace. He held the vibrating fork up, and the gentle hum washed over the sleeping cloud spirit. A tiny tremor ran through the great, misty creature. One of its cloudy eyelids fluttered slightly. It was working. The pure, calming note was reaching it, stirring it from its deep, sad dream. He had gotten its attention. Now, he had to give it a reason to wake up completely. With the cloud spirit stirring, Finnian knew he needed more than a single note. He needed a song. He didn't have his flute with him, so he used the first and oldest instrument of all, his own voice. He began to hum a soft, gentle, and simple melody. It was a lullaby his own grandmother had hummed to him when he was a little gnome. A song about the way the sun warms the earth after a long rain, and how the flowers lift their sleepy heads to greet it. His voice was not loud or powerful, but it was full of a deep, honest kindness. He hummed of the joy of the little tadpoles as they swam in the pond, of the happiness of the thirsty roots of the great oak tree, and of the beauty of the forest when it was washed clean and sparkling after a gentle shower. He poured all of his love for his home, for his friends, and for the life-giving rain itself into the simple, wordless song. He was reminding the rain spirit of all the happiness its music brought to the world below, of all the little creatures who were waiting to hear its song again. It was a lullaby to wake a sleeping heart, a gentle plea for the music to return. As Finnian's gentle lullaby filled the heart of the storm, the cloud spirit began to wake. Its slow, sad breathing started to change, becoming a little lighter, a little deeper. A soft, silvery blue light began to pulse from within its vast, cloudy form, a light that grew steadily stronger with every note of Finnian's song. Then, with a slow, graceful movement, the cloud spirit began to uncurl. It stretched its long, serpentine body, and as it did, a sound echoed through the chamber. It was a single, perfect, musical note, as clear and as beautiful as a glass bell. It was the first note of the rain song. The note hung in the air, harmonizing perfectly with Finnian's humming. And as it did, the first magical raindrop formed in the air beside him. It was not grey and sad, but was filled with a brilliant, silvery blue light. It hovered for a moment, shimmering with the beautiful note, and then it began to fall, leaving a trail of sparkling light behind it as it descended through the cloud, down towards the thirsty world below. The music had returned. That first magical drop was followed by another, and then another, and then 100 more. The cloud spirit was fully awake now. Its gentle, wise eyes, the color of a stormy sky, were open. It looked at the tiny gnome with a look of deep gratitude. It began to sing its song, not with a voice, but with its whole being. A beautiful, complex melody of 1,000 harmonious notes filled the air, and with each note, 1,000 glowing, musical raindrops were born. They filled the cloud chamber with a cascade of shimmering, silvery blue light, each one carrying a perfect, chiming note. The silent, grey storm was gone, replaced by a vibrant, living symphony of light and sound. The rain was singing again. Finnian stopped his own humming and just listened, his heart filled with an overwhelming sense of joy and wonder. The song was more beautiful than he had ever heard it before, as if the rain spirit, grateful to be awake, was now singing with all of its heart. The little gnome had done it. He had traveled to the very heart of the storm and, with a simple, kind lullaby, had woken the music up. Down below, in the quiet, waiting forest, the first of the magical raindrops began to fall. The dull, silent plink-plonk was replaced by a beautiful, gentle chiming. A soft, silvery blue light began to filter through the trees, illuminating the forest in a magical glow. The little frog, still waiting on Finnian's porch, let out a happy croak as the first musical drop landed on his nose. The tadpoles in the pond, hearing their lullaby return, finally settled down into a peaceful sleep. The baby birds in their nests snuggled deeper, soothed by the familiar, gentle melody. All over the forest, creatures big and small felt the return of the rain's song, and a collective sigh of relief and happiness seemed to rise up from the valley. The flowers, which had been closed and drooping, lifted their heads and opened their petals, drinking in the beautiful, glowing rain. The world was coming back into balance. The song of the rain washed away not just the dust from the leaves, but the sadness from the air, leaving everything clean, bright, and full of a deep, sleepy peace. And it was all thanks to the courage of one very small, very kind gnome. High above, in the heart of the now happy storm, the cloud spirit thanked Finnian with a final, gentle swirl of mist that felt like a warm, damp hug. The moon manta ray appeared once more, ready to guide him home. The journey back was a joyful one. Finnian flew on the manta ray's back through a sky now filled with the beautiful, singing rain, its gentle light illuminating their way. When he finally arrived back at his own cozy hollow, he was very tired, but his heart was overflowing with happiness. He stood on his porch for a moment, listening to the beautiful symphony that he had helped to create. The song of the rain was the most beautiful music in the world. He went inside, and as he snuggled into his little bed, the gentle chiming of the raindrops on his roof was the most perfect lullaby he could ever imagine. He had been brave, he had been kind, and he had brought the music back, with a contented smile on his kind, weathered face. Finnian, the rain tuner, closed his eyes and drifted off into a deep and peaceful sleep, lulled by the sweet song of the rain. And so Finnian, the rain tuner, watched over his musical forest, a quiet guardian of its sleepy songs. Now, it is your turn to listen for the gentle music of the night. Close your eyes, hear the quiet rhythm of your own breathing, and drift off to sleep. Good night. If you enjoyed our fable tonight, we hope you'll join us again. Please like and subscribe to Bedtimes Fable to help us share more gentle stories with the world. Sweet dreams.